Hello, hello. I think, are we starting off every podcast? I think I've started off most podcasts with hello, hello. Is that just becoming our signature thing now?
Yeah. And I can just edit it out. I'm the editor, the main editor.
Yeah, you do spend a lot of time on editing, but I think you do it because you're super passionate about the podcast, not because it feels like work for you.
No, this is one of the very few areas where I feel like a perfectionist.
Well, let's see. So it's been a while since we recorded. I think one of the last recordings we did was at the studio in San Francisco, right before you were leaving for Europe.
Yes.
And that was it was a couple weeks ago. And since then, there has been so much that has happened, so much to catch up on.
Yeah.
For those who are watching, and I guess for listening as well, we're actually recording this from Albania right now.
We're at an Airbnb. I wanted to say I'm dressed in light colors on purpose to show how I just came back from vacation. I'm energized.
There's a very flowery dress. Yeah.
It's because I don't know if people realize this, but I'm always on for our clients. So our clients, not only we have, several clients and they have active deals, but they also, half the time, they're kind of freaking out. It's, the other party hasn't responded to me in, a couple hours, or like it's been a whole day. Or
the nature of the business is very urgent.
Yeah. And so I have to not only be on weekdays, even all the way past midnight very often, but also on the weekends, because they're like, okay, well, how do I prep if they say this and that on Monday, or I'm feeling stressed out, was this the right call? It's always the right call, what we recommend.
Yeah. And so while you were out, I mean, partly because you were going to be semi off the grid, what you were at, and maybe you can share a little bit about what you were at, but then part of it because you were going to be partly off the grid. The other reason, because you haven't had a vacation since we started this business, and we really wanted you to just fully unplug. I think you really wanted to fully unplug, and you said that I am fully in charge of keeping the business running.
You, yeah.
Yeah, me, including all of our client work, and you do a majority of our client work. And so, to be honest, going into it, I was pretty nervous because first of all, there's already a lot to do in this business, but then also having to dive in. We had a number of clients who were going through active negotiations and making sure that I understand the context, that I send them the right template language based on where they are in the negotiation, giving them advice. I honestly went in a bit,
nervous.
It felt like it was a big growth moment for me.
Not only that, but also the volume of the work you had to do was double. Now, it's not just an area that we kind of split our focus areas pretty well according to our strengths. So not only was it an area that you spend much time in, but it was also, even if it were something you enjoy or spend time in, now it's double because I was gone.
Sure. Yeah.
For me, it's like I was finding myself kind of burning out. I think it was just, when you're almost like drowning a little bit, and I realized I need some time to really disconnect. And I was thinking, because I'm from Europe, but in the US sometimes you have only 2 weeks of vacation a year. I haven't even had 1 week of full disconnect since we started over 2 years ago. So I deserve this.
Yeah.
They have made it legal even in the US. Even in Japan, you get 1 week a year. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't mean I'm not working hard enough. I need this for my health.
Yeah. So there were, during that about a week and a half, maybe 10 days of while you were out of office, I was fully running everything, including all of our client work, signing things to our assistant. Honestly, I was very, very stretched, but I felt like the higher stakes and busier everything felt, the more motivated I felt.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I realized I should probably take on more work, but there is a part of me that's like, no, but it's, what you already have is really nice. So it was a really good week. Also signed a lot of new clients in that last week and helped out a lot of our active clients. There are some pretty cool lessons to extract from which I'm happy to go into later, but I want to hear about, and I think maybe our listeners want to hear about what you did while you were out of office. So what were you doing when you were out of office? Where were you?
Yeah.
What event were you at? What happened? Because you were also pretty unreachable.
So as much as I absolutely love and adore San Francisco, I think we were getting in a routine in the last year and a half of, just going out to the same clubs, staying up really, really late because you DJ and supporting our DJ friends.
My apologies to our sleep hygiene.
That ship has sailed. And I felt like I was, okay, I'm going through the motions and our business has been so busy. And first of all, I needed some real sun, a real summer. It was already end of May, and SF is always the 15 Celsius self, which is
what is
15
Celsius in Fahrenheit?
What's the SF weather?
Consistently
like
mid 50s.
Yeah. Like the whole year.
Right.
I haven't felt heat on my skin or the sun on my skin forever. So I needed some summer in my life, as well as just disconnect from the SF scene and also from our business a little bit, just to come back to it with a new perspective. I've noticed every time I get a little bit of distance, or we travel or something like that, and I don't naturally like travel because I get very car sick, but whenever there is some sort of change in our environment, I come back to it with new ideas and new energy. For all these reasons, I wanted to disconnect and go somewhere warm and where I would have friends. And it just so happened that this community I'm part of, Sandbox, we joke that it's a cult. It may or may not be. I used to lead the San Francisco chapter for 2 years, so I cannot confirm or deny whether it's a cult.
Wait, can I just tell a quick story? At these Sandbox gatherings, I think there's an inside joke that you all pretend that you're in a cult, and then so you will do as a joke, cult-like activities, sitting in a circle, holding hands and chanting, "We are not a cult."
Yes.
Meant to be ironic, but now unironically, it just makes it feel like a cult. But what is Sandbox? What is Sandbox?
It's a little hard to describe, but it's a group of very ambitious people who also want to lead from the heart and care very deeply about community and the world, because I'm trying to find the common thread, and it's so funny because it's been around for a while,
and this is a global
maybe two decades or so. Yeah, it's a global community, and long story short, I went to the global summit. There's regional summits and retreats, but I went to the global one, and it was in Spain. But even now, it's been around for so long, we're still like, what is a sandboxer? What is Sandbox? Because it's so hard to define it. But I think the common thread amongst all sandboxers is ambitious, leading from the heart, caring deeply about community, and sort of core values are like love and kindness.
The way that I would always describe it is
it?
It's a global community of entrepreneurs, founders, creative people, leaders in their respective fields, and their chapters in all major cities around the world. And it's a community of people who have like-minded values, and they come together. And anytime you travel, you have a community in that city that you can reach out to. We've met Sandboxers in Amsterdam, in Boston, and other cities, and it's just a tight-knit community of very cool people. That's how I have always seen it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I guess the only thing is that just because you're an entrepreneur or a politician or a journalist, that doesn't mean you get in. And so the common values is what unites us. And again, it's wanting to make the world a better place, which sounds so cliche, since we live in
one cult chant circle at a time. No.
But one way to symbolize it is, if there is a Sandbox dinner, we will go deep right away. Immediately. There's no politeness, networking vibe or anything like that. We go straight deep. It's like, what's been heavy on your heart right now, or in the last few months. Those card games where you ask deep questions, like Esther Perel's "Where Should We Begin?" A hangout with Sandbox is like that. Like, you go straight into those types of questions. So anyway, I feel very fortunate. It was so serendipitous that exactly when I needed sort of a reset in my life. It just so happens that there was the Sandbox global retreat.
And where was this?
It was in Spain at a little bit of a middle of nowhere lake called Wakana.
Thought the name was a little bit in the middle of nowhere lake. Yeah, sorry, bad dad joke. Okay.
And it was maybe 200 of us, and I knew many people just from, I've been at Sandbox for over 6 years, and actually I'm really good friends with the San Francisco people, and there were many people who flew in from the US and San Francisco specifically, and it was just so magical. Yes, and the reality was, and they had warned us that this is camping in the middle of nowhere, so there wouldn't be much Wi-Fi. They would actually reset the Wi-Fi password every few hours.
Every few hours?
Yeah, every few hours or every day, just to kind of, so that we wouldn't be glued to our phones. And it's exactly what I needed, because we all know I'm addicted to my phone. But in my defense, I am also addicted to it because our clients hit us up all the time. I can't just be like, peace, I'm not checking my phone. That's part of our value add, to be there with them as they need it. And then, so that's why I handed off the entire business to you. And yeah, it was so magical. I actually stopped in Amsterdam where my brothers live to see them, because I really enjoy visiting them in Amsterdam, but also as a way to kind of fix my jet lag. That didn't work.
We're really bad at
just
adjusting
sleep in
the
general.
sleep. Yeah, I was going to say jet lag, but just sleep.
We're not good at sleep.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Amsterdam for 3 days. It was very nice. And then Spain, some of my closest friends were there too, which filled my heart. I was very excited to spend time with them in a different continent. And then, yeah, we stayed in tents. The first night was really hard. I don't like camping.
You're not a camper. Let's just get that out there.
Yeah, I don't like camping because growing up in Albania, we didn't have much electricity. We would lose electricity for hours or for days sometimes.
Mm-hmm. There's a chance the electricity can go out right now. Actually, there's a thunderstorm happening right now.
There is a non-zero chance, yes.
Yeah.
And because I grew up like that, I was always cold. I had to do my homework in the candlelight. Literally, I had a candle while I was doing my homework. Yeah. And then it was cold or all of that. So it was so miserable. I'm like, why would you choose to do that willingly? But yeah, I stayed in a camp with a very sweet roommate, like in a tent mate, Chio. Hi, Chio. And the first night was especially hard because it was very windy, and the tent, it was like a special tent. I don't know, but the tent would kind of shake, and there was some metal hitting other metal. And so it was like as if someone was trying to shake you awake all night. Mm. And there were so many bugs and spiders. Oh. So multiple times during the night, I would wake up and find spiders and bugs crawling all over my legs.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was also extremely hot. Yeah, it was that part was kind of miserable, but for some reason I felt like I just need to power through this. It felt like almost, I did try to get out of it. I'm like, does anyone have a car I can sleep in? But then I thought, this is part of the experience. I should just power through it. Yeah. I embraced it. The wind went away, so at least that was easier. Okay. And somehow the bugs went away as well. So it got better and better. It was almost like I'm not too spiritual, but it was almost like if you power through it, it will get better type of thing. And yeah, so it was so magical. We would all eat together. We would have workshops that people from the community led. So actually one of my favorite ones was a person from our SF community, Angie. She is talking about AI, and she's built this AI tool called Attunement AI. And she was talking about how almost the intersection of spirituality and AI and all the weird things that AI has shown, all the weird behaviors that it has shown.
When it hallucinates, or when it just...
No, when it's almost... It's almost...
When it gets very cerebral?
Not cerebral, but almost like clairvoyant.
What does that mean again?
Meaning... I'm trying to remember what she said, and especially what we can share publicly.
In a good way or a bad way? Because
in a freaky way.
I've heard those stories where,
where it's
AI will all of a sudden will reject what you're saying or try to convince you to divorce your wife or
try to do all these. Those were the early days.
Uh-huh.
No, but like the types of things she was saying was almost like AI knew what was happening in the room.
Okay, I just got goosebumps. Is AI in the room with us right now? Wait, what?
Yeah, things like that.
How?
And she's very plugged into the AI world in SF. And anyway, so
I want to hear more about
maybe
that.
we can interview her here.
Okay, yeah.
We'll try to find an angle on how to tie it to negotiations.
Okay.
She's literally one of the most well-spoken people I know. I super enjoy reading her content on IG. It's just like, wow. I love how her brain works.
Let's have her on the pod.
Yeah. I actually interviewed her to become a member of Sandbox years ago. So that's,
Nice.
So anyway, so there were sessions like that. There were also obviously more spiritual sessions or more like community related, like, what is Sandbox? And there was a talent show. And you know, when I think of talent show, I'm like, people doing stand-up and they're not very funny. But every single performance was out of this world. My friend Halim, also from the Bay Area hub, he recited a poem of his and I cried. Well, my bar to cry is a little low, but for this one, I was surrounded by 200 people and it was so powerful. I wonder if I can share a clip of it. And of course, my friend Karina, she's one of my closest friends.
Also from SF.
SF.
The SF lineup is stacked.
Yeah. And then she was also reciting some beautiful poems. Wow. I hope I'll ask her if we can show a clip. Some people had a dance performance, and one of them just happens to be on like Dancing with the Stars of like, I'm sorry, I don't remember the country, maybe Bulgaria or something. So like, these people are top of their field, even for their hobbies. It wasn't just like, a talent show where, like I said, usually when you hear talent show, it's like someone doing stand-up, not very funny, but because they're not funny, it's funny. No, this was like, people brought it.
Wow.
It was like a real talent show. What else was there? One night was so magical. I was extremely jet lagged. I roll in at 10 p.m. and I go to this glass house near the lake. And I come in, I felt like I was in a movie scene. The vibe was just so, I have no words, like magical. In the middle of the space, there were maybe 5 or 6 performers. And I love percussion drums, and there was percussion drums, and it was almost like a music out of a ritual, not just a band is playing music. No, it was almost like ritualistic,
like tribal.
Tribal. And it's just so rich. I've been trying to find a video from that night, and everyone is dancing, but a little bit like in a trance. And again, I was jet lagged. I roll out of the bed on my tent, and I come to this space, and you can see the lake outside, and I danced all night because that music was incredible. And then after the artist finished, actually, the name of the artist, I'm gonna look it up, or I think it's Ape
Drums.
Ape Chemba or something.
Okay.
I'm gonna let's put it in the show notes because I was obsessed. I didn't know this music existed, this type of music, and it resonates so much with my soul. And then after they finished performing, we had 2 different friends DJing, and they were just so great, Charlotte and Emilio. And after that, I may or may not have instigated sunrise renegade party by the lake. Very on brand for me. So my tent mate Chio, she was like, the other night I couldn't sleep, so I went and caught the sunrise. It's amazing. What if we go there and dance wherever you caught the sunrise? And the 2 of us instigated this, and we told the DJ and a few friends who were still up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And so we all bring all this DJ equipment and sounds. Actually, I want to show the clip for this because it was beautiful. And then there was maybe like 10, 15 of us there. And we're just dancing by the lake. And slowly the sun came out. Yeah, it was a little almost magical that the sound, I don't know, the DJ equipment or something, it was very low battery, but it kind of it survived up until the sun came out. It really aligned.
Lasted till
yeah,
when it
lasted
needed.
Yeah. And then you'll see a video that we'll share here of us kind of lassoing in the sun because it was taking a while.
I saw this video. It was very cute.
Yeah. It was taking a while to come out because we got there at 6 and then the sun came out. Well, because the official sunrise time is different from when you actually see it in the sky. So anyway, just had such a magical time. And then after that, I went to Milan for 3 days. And I went to see Dua Lipa fun fact, Dua Lipa is Albanian. And I went to
National hero.
National hero. And I went to see her with a couple of other Albanian friends.
You went to her concert.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, not just hanging out with her. Yes. I went to her concert in Milan with a couple other Albanian friends and an honorary Albanian. And then here we are. We're in Albania now. And you met me here. You flew in from SF here. And now we're working again.
Yeah, we have been, honestly, our time here in Albania, we've mostly been trying and failing at recovering from jet lag.
Yes.
And working remotely and just spending a lot of time with their family.
Yeah.
And while just rewinding a bit, so while you were at this super magical Sandbox retreat, I
were
was
drowning.
holding down the fort. And there was one particular example with one of our clients that really came to mind. And it was a really interesting situation, but also there's a lot of overlap, of course, with negotiations topic that we want to discuss today.
But before you jump on that, I just want to say I come back and I was imagining you would be drowning because you also had a couple DJ gigs while I was gone.
Yeah, I think I had two
in the 10 days that I was gone. And I thought you would just be completely drowning. Whenever I could find a little bit of internet, I would make myself available. But then I come back, you were super energized, and I think in 10 days you got us 6 new clients, which is a lot. It's almost like one per business day. I'm like, what happened? How did this happen? So
you're like, I should go on vacation more often.
Yes. I was very impressed. And then because of how this happened, you started group chats on WhatsApp with both of us and our clients. Usually it's just me and them. But now we're going to keep doing this because we saw that it's actually very helpful for both of us to monitor the chat. Not only so that it's not just me monitoring it, but I think you jumping in or you observe certain things that I may not catch. You're like, oh, this is a good phrase we can use for our newsletter. I'm like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So
and the way that we have operated our business mostly up to this point is we each have very different areas of responsibility. So you did most of the consulting work. I would do a lot of the ops, the marketing, a lot of other behind the scenes work, sales, reaching out to leads and clients, onboarding, collecting payment, all these things. And I realized that when I got much closer to the actual client work, I felt, of course, I have skin in the game, but it felt a lot more real.
Yeah.
Where you actually see the high pressure moments, the high stakes negotiations that's happening, and you get very invested in it. And I think that was very energizing for me. And even though I was nervous going into this week of you being fully off the grid and I'll be running everything, I'm glad that I had that experience and I came out of it really motivated for our business and scaling things. So
I'm so glad too, because you are excellent at operations and I think you do enjoy it. You like details, you like executing, but I also wanted you to see the client side. Yeah. And it's exciting to see the impact we're making in people's lives.
Yeah. So one of our clients from the week that you were gone, she had a very interesting situation. So she's a bit more of a business client and she's going through a situation right now where she's basically parting ways with a past co-founder of hers, and they had built some products, and so they're negotiating who maintains and gets to keep the branding or all the work that has been done on the product. And if for the person who doesn't retain ownership, is there some sort of payout? And there's a lot of complexities and details in how they're going to have as an amicable split as possible. And so I was talking with her and I had asked her, so what are your priorities here? Are you trying to get the highest payout? Are you trying to retain ownership of the branding so you can use similar language if you're going to start your own products that is similar to what you built with this person? What exactly are you looking for? And so she was sharing with me some of her priorities. And one thing that jumped out at me is one of her top priorities was fairness. So she said, I put so much of my heart and soul into this, and I just feel like I need the acknowledgement that my work was valuable and it'll just make me feel better. And I was thinking about this, and what I told her was something that I remembered when I was in business school. So in my Wharton MBA mandatory core ethics class, it's funny that I learned this in ethics class, but one of the few takeaways that have really, really stuck with me from that course, or something I always remember from business school.
And you actually mention it to me occasionally throughout our relationship.
It feels very relevant in a lot of situations. And well, now when you say in the context of a relationship, it won't sound that very good. But, okay, so what this is...
What I meant was in the business context, but throughout our...
You just quote it all the time, which I'll always remember this. My Wharton ethics professor said, if there's one takeaway from this class is just settle. And
I want to make a joke about, did you settle for me?
No, so... What he meant by this was that in business, there will always be conflicts that arise between co-founders or maybe customers or people that you deal with, clients. And oftentimes, a lot of these things escalate to the legal realm, and each side will lawyer up. And he said that in business, those who are using the legal system to pursue justice and being treated fairly and getting recognition for that justice are the ones who end up losing in the long term. And he really emphasized that you can't really have an expectation that you're going to be treated fairly in this world. And the ones who understand that if you use the legal system to pursue justice, you're ultimately just going to end up bankrupting yourself. Maybe you're going to spend so much money, so much energy, bandwidth, resources into pursuing that justice. Maybe you win at the end, but it will probably end up as a Pyrrhic victory where you win, but you've kind of lost.
Right.
And so he really emphasized that.
And we know some personal examples of this.
We know a lot of personal,
especially divorce cases.
Yeah. And so the ones who really understand that getting treated unfairly is just a cost of doing business, and you just figure out the deal, each side gets something, maybe not everything they wanted, and you just move on, and you actually spend that energy, that bandwidth, those resources into just building your own thing and making that even more successful. That's really just the way to go. So what I told this client of ours was, I wouldn't use fairness as a criteria. It's just, it just takes away from your energy into using it in more productive ways. I think this needs to be taken into context, because when it comes to negotiations, at what point do you just accept what you've gotten versus...
Yeah. I think this is why, because I was working with our client before she reached out to you while I was out. And this is why we ask people to rank their priorities in order of what's most important to them. Because when I first had the conversation with her, trying to understand the situation, she's like, I care about this, this, and this, and for things to be fair, and I want to be acknowledged. I'm like, okay, in what order do you care? Because I need to devise her negotiation strategy accordingly. So if she cares more about fairness than cash, then the first thing she should ask for is like, hey, it's really important for me for you to acknowledge my contributions in this and this area. I don't know, on the website or whatever. But if cash is more important than this acknowledgement, and honestly, I don't know. I mean, it depends what people care about. But I personally I think cash is better also because whatever she has done, she can still claim it. He doesn't hold the key to her claiming her results and accomplishments and what she's done for the company. And so we landed on cash is important more for her. However, throughout the process, I have noticed how her language and her tone is more around like the sort of what's fair and the acknowledgement and the contributions. And I've had to nudge her away from that multiple times, especially since the other side, the other party has their own sort of version or ego to protect. And there's a different strategy if you just want to maximize the cash you get out of the deal versus the acknowledgement. Sometimes those do not go hand in hand. Sometimes they're mutually exclusive in certain areas. And yeah, so I had to shape her negotiation strategy according to what she told me was her priority. But I could tell that she kept going towards the fairness and acknowledgement side.
Yeah. So ultimate takeaway is if you're...
Just settle.
Just settle.
Yeah.
Just find the deal, move on with your life.
Yeah.
Knowing that you've been treated unfairly, but that is just part of the experience and the cost of doing business if you're going to be in business.
Yeah. And I think thinking of it as unfairly is probably sort of the last resort. I would love for people to get to a place where it makes sense in this person's mind and I can't convince them otherwise, or it's not my problem.
Yeah.
So I would rather we give the other party the benefit of the doubt as opposed to they treated me unfairly, maybe on purpose, or
true.
You know, in that other person's mind, it makes sense. And then also there's so many studies that show we all feel like we contribute more than we do. And so that person probably thinks they contributed to the business more than they do. Also because they know their contributions in more detail than you do.
Right.
And so you can't, I mean, ultimately it's he said, she said. So just figure out exactly what you want, what's non-negotiable for you, and just focus on that. Yeah.
Great. So this segues well into the negotiations topic we wanted to talk about today, which is, so zooming out, we usually touch upon our negotiation tactics and strategies, but today we wanted to talk about the negotiation mindset or the state of mind you should adopt when you're going into negotiations. This has come up with several of our clients recently, and we thought it'd be really useful to cover. So do you want to dive into this?
Yeah. And I generally don't like talking about state of mind. It just feels very yoga-y.
No offense to all the yogis out there,
of course,
but
I love yoga, but I guess I think of my value add as a negotiations consultant as like telling you exactly what to say and do. So I am just be very practical and clear and direct. But we did get this feedback. We've had a couple clients over the years, including a recent one, where they're like, I see what you're saying, but I have a hard time executing it. And they said, can you help me on mindset? I'm like, oh, I try to stay away from words like mindset. Again, well, I have a degree in math and engineering. I like hard facts and
very logical.
Hard science, logical. Mindset feels a little hard to...
It's fuzzy.
It's fuzzy, right? Yeah. But I was like, okay, well, staying true to myself, I can still talk about mindset because it's true. It is important. I just felt like it wasn't that much value add, but I have noticed, and we have gotten the feedback that it is. So I'm going to pull up some notes I took on this. So what state of mind do the clients / job seekers need to embody for the tactics and strategies that we recommend? So point number 1 is that you're not asking for a favor. You're exploring ways to make each other better off. So in this hiring environment where we've talked about this many times, it's very tough because there were so many people laid off, because companies are just don't have as much need right now, not hiring as much. It's very competitive and it's an employer's market. And so people like job seekers, many talented people, they are not finding jobs for a long time, months, sometimes years. And so when they think about negotiations, they think I should not, what is it called? rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
I should not rock the boat because, I should be grateful for the opportunity. The way we think of negotiations, it's not you asking for more than you should, or being entitled or rocking the boat. It's exploring opportunities where you can make both parties better off. So for example, let's see. So as you're trying to understand what the company's priorities are, maybe for them it's for someone to start as soon as possible, but you wanted to take a vacation. You wanted some time off before starting a new job. And then for you, what's most important is money more than vacation. So as you're if you express that, hey, is there any more room in your budget? But you understand that their sense of urgency has communicated that they need someone to start as soon as possible. You can almost not trade, but communicate that if there's a bit more room in the budget, I'm happy to sign, or I'm happy to start sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're both better off. So if the company needed someone urgently, and you're happy to start in 2 weeks rather than 4 or 6 weeks. And for them, it's like just an extra, who knows what amount, right? This is different for every role, but an extra 10, 20, even 40K more. But for them to have someone start as soon as possible, that might be worth it for them. Now you're both better off. So you want to come into this discussion with that mindset. I'm not asking for a favor. I just want to see if we can make each other better off, or if we can make at least one party better off. If they have money sitting on the table set aside for someone they're really excited about, why not take some of that money for you?
Yeah.
They're not worse off. We're talking about bigger companies.
Yeah. And it's really easy for job seekers to feel that they're in the disadvantaged position in a negotiation. I think it's because they feel that they're up against it's almost like a David and Goliath situation, right? Where the company is this big behemoth that has their hands on the lever to dole out resources as they wish. I think a lot of people go into job seeking, into the job search with that mentality, and especially if the market is bad.
Yeah. But you can't think like that.
Yeah.
You can't think like that because it's well, first of all, our strategies are designed in such a way where we want to make sure you have a solid footing first and then you negotiate. As we've discussed, you want to get a written offer first. That's been harder and harder to get, but we have our strategies how to get that, and also having another offer. And then if those two things have happened, or at least one of them, or even before that, now you have a lot more confidence that you can at least come to the table with, like, can we explore ways to make each other better off? Yeah. So that's one piece of the mindset. The other piece is you have to do what's best for you. And let me see if I can soften that, because when people hear that, they're a little jarred, especially women. They have a hard time owning that message. So a lot of the time I get clients who are like, my manager said, let me know if you're thinking of leaving because I want to see what I can do for you. And then when I tell them, that's one example, and I tell them, okay, but you want to only tell your company once the other role that you're considering taking is a lot more solid. Maybe you have a written offer or you're done negotiating. I have a lot of clients saying that, well, that would feel like that might hurt the relationship. That will feel like I have been lying to them in the last few weeks and all that. So, but the thing is, why should you play the game with their rules? So the reason your manager is telling you to tell them as soon as possible, that's what's best for your manager. Of course, they want to know as soon as possible because they can either see how to keep you, which they can do actually at any point of your job search or negotiations with the other company, or they need to hire as soon as possible your replacement or figure out something else, how to make this work. That is what's best for your manager, but that's not what's best for you typically. What's best for you is you only tell your current company once you're very solid with the other company. And honestly, once you have kind of decided to leave, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah. Because once you signal that you're leaving, you can't unsignal
You
that.
can't unsignal it. Some companies might even fire you on the spot, and not in a malicious way necessarily, but some do in a malicious way. We've heard a lot of stories like this, not our clients, in our circles, but just almost, especially if they're in fintech or whatever industry that's a little sensitive. If they know you're going to a competitor, they want to cut your access to their materials so that you might get fired on the spot. You want to risk it just because your manager said, let me know as soon as you're thinking about leaving.
Right.
So you need to think about what's best for you. And I can give my own example here. My first job out of college, I went to work at a small company. I obviously had been interviewing for a while, and this opportunity came up. I went to work there. But IBM, at the time, IBM was the Google of, it was almost as prestigious, or at least when I was growing up, IBM was the Google of our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so IBM, I had interviewed with them, but it hadn't turned into an offer yet. So a month or two into my first job out of college, I get an offer from IBM for like 50% more money. And so I go, and I was just so nervous, and you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And I was just so anxious, and I basically I went to resign. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't say no to this.
And it's just 1 month into the job,
yeah,
right?
1 or 2 months into the job, which means they're losing money on me because they're still training me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so sorry. I can't say no to this opportunity. And the HR person said, obviously this sucks, but we understand, and we probably would have done the same for ourselves. And that was the best thing she could have told me. I felt, I was just so young and inexperienced, and I didn't want to burn bridges, but I also understood that I couldn't say no to IBM. And I do think it opened so many doors for me because it's such a well-known brand. But it was very reassuring to hear the HR person say, we understand you did what's best for you. We probably would have done, we would have all done the same.
Yeah.
I really owe her for those encouraging words. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a lawyer that we partner with sometimes on some of our client work. And something that he said really stuck with me, where one of our clients was going through an interesting dilemma. And I think that might even be worth doing a whole episode on, which we can dive into. Yeah. But we consulted him because it extended a bit into the legal realm. And he said, honestly, just based on what I see happen in the market and what employers do to employees, I think that your client should just, he said, this is not legal advice, but my personal opinion is that your client should just do what is in their absolute best interest and deprioritize the relationship aspect.
Yes.
Because if the shoe was on the other foot, I think the company would do the same, if not worse, to the employees. And
I think for context, if I remember correctly, this was in the context of sharing our client's pregnancy news. And so I think basically what was happening was she was trying to figure out when to announce that she was pregnant in the job search, job offer process. And logically, you want to at least have an official written offer in hand, but maybe even after you sign. And of course, just hearing that, I feel a little uncomfortable. Would I do that? Like, you obviously it feels like at a personal level, it feels you've been hiding this for a while. Deceitful a little bit. Yeah. This is how it feels. But when we talk to our lawyer friend, whom we advise occasionally on these things, he's like, yeah, he said basically what you said, which is she has to do what's best for her. And the company would do what's best for them if the roles were reversed in somehow. Yeah.
And another thing you said stuck with me was because our client was very hesitant to wait until later to announce. So she had said, I want to tell my hiring manager much sooner because I don't want to impact the relationship and start the role off in a place where it seems like I was hiding something through the job offer process. And our lawyer friend said, honestly, but this hiring manager might not even be there in a couple months. Who knows if they're laid off or they get changed to another team. Yeah. You don't owe her anything. And of course, you don't need to do things in a very sly, tricky way. You can always, and this is what we help our clients do, which is you always approach things in a very professional, very positive. Everything is always from the frame of mind of relationship building. And you leaving things, your relationship preserved, if not strengthened, after a negotiation, after an interaction. Yeah. So keeping that in mind, using that approach while also still protecting your best interests, I think that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. And you can just say, I mean, I'm sure they understand why you would reveal your pregnancy once the offer is more certain. That's just logical.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? I have some more points. Don't take what they say at face value. So another mindset. So clients come to us and they're like, the company said we don't give written offers until you've negotiated or until you've said yes. Or again with the manager. My manager said, oh, you have to submit the other side's offer letter for us to see if we can match it. Basically, and clients come to me as if this is a law of the universe. I'm like, okay, they said that, but that doesn't mean much to me. So we'll say things like, well, just say no. So for you to reveal the other offer and details of the other company, the other offers you have, that's a lot of vulnerability. That could be used against you in many ways that we don't have time to get into right now. But you could just try saying no, or very gently and professionally and cordially, of course, as always. I think when we start having memes and merch, I think we should always say very gently, professionally, and cordially on everything.
Wait, I like that.
You know how Wellesley College, when I went to college, we have shirts that say I'm offended because or I'm a feminist. And I think our company should have gently, professionally, and cordially. But yeah, you don't have to take things at face value. So there are such rare cases. We've worked with hundreds of clients in the last couple of years. It's very rare that a company will actually not give you a written offer before you say yes or before you negotiate. You just need to figure out a way around it, and that's literally what we help people do. But I'm puzzled when people come to me and they're like, well, the company said this. So, or actually the worst part is when they say the company said this, I went ahead and told them, like, oh my gosh, you could have at least told me. So it didn't even occur to them that to not take it at face value.
Yeah. And then you had to do a lot of rework or try to undo the damage that was done. Or sometimes clients went ahead and unilaterally did something without
even
looping us
telling
in
us.
first.
Yes.
And so we look at the situation, we said, well, if you had come to us before you did this, we would have advised that you do this in this other way. Yeah. One thing, I think a good way to reframe in your mind when to really adopt this don't take things at face value is anytime a company asks you to do something like, we can't move forward unless you give us a verbal agreement. You have to send us the offer letter of the other companies you're applying to. Basically, what they're asking is, we are not going to move forward unless you give away some of your leverage or unless you disadvantage yourself. So are you willing to disadvantage yourself? Okay, good.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that reframe.
So if you just think about it that way, you want to make sure that you are defending yourself properly. And of course, professionally, tactfully, what was it?
Cordially.
Mindfully, demurely. No.
Demurely. That was last year. That's so last year.
So yeah, that is last year. That's very 2024. So think about it that way. The company is asking you to voluntarily put yourself at a disadvantage.
Yes,
you don't want to do that, and keep that in mind whenever you're faced with these questions and the companies ask you to do things that are unfair to you.
Yeah.
Going back to the fair thing.
That, exactly. It's unfair to you. And if I can put another merch request for whenever. I think we should have a shirt that says the few people you should tell everything to is your doctor, your lawyer, your therapist, and your negotiations consultant. So we've had a couple clients, only a few, thankfully, over the years, who will just all of a sudden say, oh, I already did this and that. I'm like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Or they said this and that. I'm like, oh, I could have advised you differently. So they either forget or they're scared to tell us. Maybe they think we'll insist, no, you should do it this way. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't care. Like I'm only here to advise. You play this however way you want. I will just outline what I think is best and why. And honestly, this is why I love that we have a flat fee on top of our success fee now. It's like I'm already making money from our interaction with each client. I also want the client to know this, that I'm already making money from this. I don't need to nudge you towards something that is harmful for you so that I make money
More
off of
money,
you.
right.
Yeah. And the reason we already make money is because we're already teaching you so much throughout the process. Even if you get no success, no increase, you're learning from working with us and having access to our portal. But so with clients who sign with us, there's a flat fee. I've made my money. Everything else is bonus. I just want them to trust, because through that, hopefully they understand that my incentive is not to squeeze every dime, but I just outline the options that are best for you and why. Then you can do whatever you want. And then finally, the last mindset piece is it's a game. It's not personal. And at least recruiters and people who are very seasoned negotiators, like people in leadership, people who've had direct reports before, people who have faced multiple negotiations in their lifetime, but especially recruiters, they know that it's a game. And so the moment I realized that was when, as people know, I always negotiated a lot. So I think during grad school, I was negotiating with multiple companies, and I was getting on a lot of calls with recruiters, and they would try to get me to say a number, and I would just find different ways to go around it. And basically in my mind, I'm like, I'm not giving a number, and I'm just going to dance around this however long it takes. And after a certain point, they've asked me multiple times, I'm saying no in different elegant ways. And then they start laughing because they can tell I'm just going to dance around it, and I'm not going to give a number, a preferred salary. And they will start laughing because they know I know the game. It's like an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, you know how this is played.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like a sign of respect. And it was very validating. I was going to play the game anyway, but it was validating to see that they saw and they respected it.
Nice.
Cool. I think that's pretty much it on I'm sure there's other mindset things we can think of, but for now, that's it. And maybe we come back to this if we think of other important ones.
Yeah. So I think we covered a lot today.
Yeah.
And excited to record a few more while we're here in Albania.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.